All right, everybody, we're back again. We're going to continue this discussion with the historic volatility. I had a couple questions after the last couple of videos, and just want to just pause here. Just pause here and do a little bit of a recap. It's the language that gets people all screwed up. There's more than one thing that we use the Greeks for, and volatility really in the end, at Vega, it's just one more of the Greeks, right? It's just one more formula. So, like for example, when we talk about delta, we can use that thing 9 different ways. Volatility is no different. One thing you really, really need to understand is how they're using the word volatility, because when someone is talking about volatility, their context is what's going to give you the idea of what particular part of the volatility it is that they're focused on. So on the left side of the screen, you can see implied volatility and the name here, IV. Let's look at the textbook definition of implied volatility. It's a statistical measure that reflects the likely range of a stock's future price change. Now, I know, right? Just take a moment, let that sink in, and think about it. There's nothing in there that talks about volatility. The only thing in that definition is that it is a measurement of the anticipated change in price. That's all. The anticipated change in price. So when IV's low, there's not much of an expected price change. Yeah, price always changes, right? I mean, look at something like SPY or SPX or whatever, the one thing it's guaranteed not to do is stay where it is. Thanks, Captain Obvious, right? Not hard to figure out there. But how far is it going to move? How far is it likely to move? In the current market, how far could it move in a single day, in a single week, a month, or a year? Now, you might be thinking this sounds a lot like ATR, the average true range. If you didn't know, let me highlight a little fact. ATR was developed for people who don't understand options and don't understand implied volatility. It was designed for those people who say, oh, I don't want to know anything about that options crap, leave me alone. Okay, well, here's an ATR indicator, and then they jump on that. It's the same thing. The ATR, however, is actually HV. It's historical volatility. Kind of. It's not exactly the same, but kind of. Because historical volatility is the standard deviation of closing prices over a specific period of days. Don't get hung up on the annualized standard deviation. Unless you've already been dealing with the math behind this stuff, this kind of language is just going to turn you away. You're going to say, I'm out of here. I don't understand any of that. It's way over my head. Screw it. I don't need to know. Just let that part go. It's computed as the change of closing prices over a specific period of days. So they measured how far price moved and put that into a bell curve, into a standard deviation formula, so that they could find its average or its mean. That's it. No word about volatility in there. Okay? They could have called this thing Bob's Uncle. Instead, they called it historical volatility. We could just say it's the ATR. Now, it's not necessarily exactly the ATR. One thing about ATR that makes it different is that it uses a smoothing formula, but true range or average true range is still just counting back X amount of candles and measuring the average between all of those. Like if on a 14-day ATR, it's going to measure each of those 14 days and see how far price moved from open to close in relation to the previous day's open to close. And it's going to calculate that and then do the next candles and then the next candle and the next candle. And when it's all done, it'll smooth it out with a smoothing uh, calculation. But it's only going back X amount of candles. Historical volatility, on the other hand, is running an annualized standard deviation of the closing prices, just the closing prices. Okay, so at the close of each day, there's a lot of indicators that do the close of each day. By the way, that's not too unusual. So really, guys, with volatility and implied volatility, when we're talking about it in this manner, we're really just talking about the open and the close of price. We're talking about the expectation that the intraday moves are going to be bigger, that on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis, the market is making bigger moves. That's it. I mean, really, that's it. We're going to get into some really deep stuff in some forward coming videos, and we're going to talk about these statistical formulas that are going to really hurt your head. It's got a pretend trade that's in the SPX, and it's using out of the money options, and it runs these statistical calculations, and all of that. It gets really deep and in the weeds. But we're still in the introductory portion of these videos, and you really just got to grasp how many different ways we can talk about volatility. So let's go back out to the daily chart and let's put on the implied volatility indicator. All right, now we're going to use mine just because I've done a little bit of trickery to make it nice. You know, I like my neon colored implied volatility indicator, and mine has the little labels on it with a standard deviation. Okay, so when the volatility was really high, this was telling us that on a day-to-day basis, the SPX had the potential to make some really big moves. That's all. Hey, it's got a high volatility. Oh, that means that on the day-to-day, we could really get up and move. Right on. That's good to know. When the implied volatility was really, really low, look at the size of these candles. These things are just minuscule. They're tiny. 3094 to 3110, right? Well, there's 100, or there's 10 points right there, right? So we're talking a 16-point day. The whole day, 16 points. Here's another one. From 24 down to 14, 12, we'll call it 10. It's a little shaky. A 14-point day. What a small day, right? A real low volatility day. Look at this one. Really, really small. From 3073 to 3083, a 10-point day. Really low volatility. Look at this. Very, very low. Very tiny days, right? 3025, right? These things, and that's from the lowest wick point. Look from the open to the close. 3039, 3044. These are tiny, right? Just little itty bitty days. It's important to understand this. Low volatility was implying that the market really wasn't making much of a move on a day-to-day basis. The implied volatility implied that we could expect a continuation of these small days to come in the future. That looking forward in time, in the near term, we didn't see any reason to be concerned about how far a market could move. There's a lot of ways that we can use this, but think about putting on an iron condor or a credit spread. When we put on an iron condor, we want price to stay inside the range. If it's got a low implied volatility, that would imply that it's not going to make too big of a move and that it could potentially stay inside the range. But here's the problem with that idea. With iron condors, you want them to have a higher implied volatility so that you can collect more premium in the trade. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. You want it to have a higher IV so you can make more money, but you want it to have a lower IV so that you have a greater chance of price staying inside the box. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So, guys, I hope that this step and this video kind of really helped cement for you just one of the ways that implied volatility and historical volatility can help us as stock traders or futures traders or options traders. You really, really need to have an understanding of volatility. And we are going to get into the Greeks, and we're going to get into the formula of where volatility comes from and how it's used in the options market and all of that madness. We are going to get there. But for right now, we just got to deal with the chart and this volatility indicator out here and what this is really trying to tell us. Remember what I've said in previous videos. This indicator on the chart is not the same expected move as this number in here. Okay? This number in here comes from all of the out of the money options. This out here comes from the price of the candles, how far the candles are anticipated to move in between each recorded session from close to close, right? From close to close. Okay, guys, so that's it for this video. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.